it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of our Act with Purpose podcast. So it's super exciting. So today we have a very special guest. So beside me, we have Unstoppable Tracy Schmitt. So say hi, Tracy.
Hello, the unstoppable audience of Act with Purpose.
Amazing. We're so lucky to have you here today. And also over here, we all know him. We all love him. We have John Stevens over here. Say
Hey
hi.
everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 4. Excited to be here. Excited to have not one, but 2 special guests, because right next to Miss Unstoppable Tracy Schmitt, we have Unstoppable Riley.
Riley. Yeah, good boy. Yes.
Way too cute.
Oh my gosh.
You're like on cue.
This is going to be the best. I don't know that we're going to get any talking done. We're just going to be talking to a dog.
Yes, it's acting with purpose and a dog.
Exactly. Watch like everybody
We all
at
just
home.
melt.
Everyone at home, you guys are going to be in love with Riley by the end of this podcast.
Yes.
Automatically.
Yeah, he's like, how come
It's a
everybody's
Riley
talking about
cast
me?
today,
Yes.
not a podcast.
When there's dog actors, I never thought about bringing Riley for dog acting.
Yes.
Do you guys coach in that realm as well?
Well, I've been called a dog. I'm a coach, so.
And we're off.
And
Oh
I've
my
been
gosh.
called a few other names that associated with dogs as well. But yeah, no, I have not coached dogs as of yet. I've trained a few, but no. I'm so excited to have you here. You've been doing a lot of traveling. What have you been up to?
I've been Egypt and all over the States, and I was just back from North Sydney, Nova Scotia, and I'm heading off to Greece and Tennessee and Calgary in the next 3 weeks.
Wow.
So life has taken off.
Yes, quite literally.
Literally.
That
Yes.
is amazing.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling, what are some of the most memorable moments for you when you go traveling?
You know, we're walking through an airport. Everybody is in a different space now. So I feel like everybody's back to staring. With, you know, the prosthetic legs and those kinds of things. But what I do is I just make it mean they must have seen one of my movies and that I'm famous and they're stargazing, right? That's how I get through it.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah. And that could be true too.
Well, exactly.
Like, shame on me for not thinking that is not exactly the reason they're all not staring at me.
Well, I'm actually surprised because when I mention your name, everyone's like, "Wait, you know her?"
Same, honestly. And like I know that like I have a very close friend that when she ended up seeing you speak at a showcase once, she was really inspired and she ended up reading your book and everything.
Aw.
And I know like she's gonna be watching this podcast and she'll be excited about that as well too. But a lot of people are really inspired by you, and I think that's amazing to have that impact on people.
You know, I'm blown away by that reception every single time. And I think it's a big difference that anybody could take on, not just myself because I don't have arms and legs, but I think it's also the distinction and the conversations that I learned with my time with John and and Adam that are really important with Act with Purpose is the difference between doing something and like fully being something. And I loved that distinction in our coaching sessions of just fully absorbing and being fully. And I think that's why I'm so lucky when I'm out and about is that I'm just being powerful, loving, sexy woman, unstoppable Tracy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because it actually goes back to my coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny to hear just like the passing down, the trickling down of like I was taught by Eric Morris. He wrote a book called Being and Doing.
No way.
And that is a big part of how I take that training that he gave me and I pass it down to my clients as well.
Clearly.
And it's nice to hear that resonate.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it works. You know, it works whether you're on a set or a podcast or last week. It's been 6 years since I raced competitively in the sailing side of things, right? Rio 2016, and now it's 2022. And it was a North American regatta. And it's many of the same strategies and techniques with Act with Purpose are how you get yourself grounded and ready to race.
Yeah.
They weren't at my disposal when I was trying to get into Rio.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I love hearing how acting can impact other parts of your life as well. I had somebody come to me recently and say that their acting training actually helped them get through their college interviews.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's a huge part of it as well. And then other people have come forward saying it's helped them in their personal relationships because now they understand tactics and what people are trying to do to them and how they're trying to work their magic as well. So it's a really impactful and very powerful way to start looking at human behavior and language.
Yes.
And the intention behind it.
Oh, yeah. And I think language is huge. Like, I have to drive to Nova Scotia to participate, or I get to drive to Nova Scotia to participate in that Mobility Cup.
Also, yeah, exactly. And I love that you're bringing that up too with tactics and everything. Personally speaking, I know that I love acting classes because they can help with all sorts of things, including public speaking, and which is the perfect segue into one thing I wanted to talk to you about. You are an amazing motivational speaker. What goes through your mind when you're thinking about how do you want to reach out to people when you're going and motivationally speaking to people? I invented a word, everybody.
I think that situational awareness, so it's really, if somebody sneezes in your audience, it's not being so wrapped up in exactly what you're going to say. You need to say, bless you. And who do I have PC Financial in front of me, who I just got off the phone with, which is why I'm name dropping them, is because they're top of mind. Or do I have Saskatchewan Polytech? They were both vying for October 19th in my calendar. And so the technical audience is going to be very different than the financial audience, and they're both extremely left-brain thinkers in general as a population, versus when I got to speak with your crowd and being with all these actors and movie stars and agents and the outgoing, expressive world. So how much you dial it up or dial it down and what you invite is very relevant in your speaking. I might still be sharing about a story, falling out of a boat and failing, and then becoming a World Cup sailor, kicking butt with able-bodied men, 27 of them, and the only one with no hands and no legs. But the way I tell that story is very situationally aware of who's in front of me, what's their gap.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And does it ever happen, before you're getting ready to, when you're ready to get on stage and talk in front of a lot of people, how do you handle the nerves before you go out there?
Yes. Yes. And, one of the things I learned from John's acting classes is if you're not feeling the butterflies, you're probably not at your top performance anyway. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of gave me oh, good, I got the butterflies. So it's almost like embracing it and celebrating it and honoring it. And okay, this is going to be a good one because I am scared out of my mind. Right? Right? And so who you surround yourself with. John is in my brain when I'm about to go on in nerves.
It's not the first time. He's in my brain all the time.
And so it's the way you look at it.
Why do I feel like the next podcast, everyone's going to come in with helmets to keep me from being able to read their mind?
Exactly.
Right?
It's like note to the people. It's like note to the people at home. John is a mind reader.
And it's kind of also taking that deep breath and taking the big shoulders.
Yeah.
And I got that from 5 years old. I remember being bullied on a front lawn and looking over at these kids and just wanting to play with them and saying, come over here. But there was a bunch of gravel between where they were and where I was. Mm-hmm. And that the bullying was these kids saying, oh, don't talk to her. She's weird. Just ignore her. And of course the tears started coming because I was a young girl, and my mom opened the door and she's looking at me on the front lawn, and she sees me crying and she's like, what happened? And I said, oh, those kids over there, they were bullying me, and I just wanted them to come play. And then my mom, she sort of looked at me and she said, how's that working for you? And she shut the door. And my heart was just like, oh, my mom's so mean, right? Like I was thinking at first. And then I got it. I'm like, she's not mean.
Do you still get those feelings today, like when you look at other groups and that sort of thing? Do you still feel like you're the outsider in some ways? And what are those situations?
Oh my gosh. Like even for Rio and being with those 26 able-bodied men and 3 women. And they don't even fathom that I am about to be on the start line with them. The first warm-up race, it was you always get to practice race before things get started. So I'm on the dock and they see me and I know their faces are perplexed. But then on the start line when I get out there and they're like, oh, what's she doing here, right? And they boycotted me when I got back in so that I couldn't race the real race the next day. And I was so naive. I was so focused. Like, I am meant to be here, and I've done whatever it took to be here. I just said, how come? And they said, well, it's a one-class design. And I had put some duct tape on the tiller for my left arm, and I put a pool noodle around my seat to wedge me in without my legs. And they said, your boat's not one-class design. Now, they could have done pool noodles and duct tapes too. It's not like I did some major jerry rigging, but I pulled off the duct tape and I pulled out the pool noodle and I just raced with them.
Wow.
And said, okay.
They didn't see the outboard motor you put on the back?
Yeah. John, I don't do that.
It's like she had her way.
That's besides the point,
That's
John.
besides the point. Yes.
Leave it to John about it.
Outboard motor. That would just have weighed me down. That's just a big heavy weight. Lighter is better in sailing.
There you go.
Yep, and that includes body parts. The less body parts you are, the lighter you weigh, and you kick butt. And so this is also why I kick their butts.
Wow. Oh my gosh. No, honestly, I think that's like really amazing how you ended up handling that. And like just personally speaking, I can't like growing up, ever since I was 2, I've had to go to sick kids because I was born with a calcium and thyroid deficiency.
Huh.
And they told me when I was younger, they were like, you're never going to be able to compete in anything like up to like the level that everyone else would, everything would. So I went through a very large portion of my life that I just felt like I couldn't do this. I always said the word I can't.
Yes.
And I think what I really admired about you, and I still do, is how you've never said I can't.
No.
And ever since I met you, the way that my brain was thinking about things really changed directions. And now I just think of like what I'm doing in my life right now. I never would have thought in a million years I'd ever be doing this.
Yeah.
And now I'm like so happy with how my life has honestly turned out.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you speak that one time, and honestly it's a huge change on how I'm looking at life now. So I wanted to say personally, this public area, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wonder how many thank yous you get like that, though. I think you touch a lot of people's lives, and then there's also the ones where you probably don't hear the thank yous. But I'm just like, you must get a lot of thank yous.
You meet later in life, right? Where someone's talked about, oh, I saw you 6 years ago, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and so I saw you present and I was thinking there's no way I could ask for a raise, or there's no way I could quit my job, or even people that were feeling suicidal.
Yeah.
And then they hear me, and my talk isn't necessarily directly about suicide, for example, but just that I can. You don't know unless you try, right? You embrace that possibility. I can do it. We have no idea how I'm going to ski, right? And we tried me with my long legs, but because my knees are artificial, my knees just bent. And we tried me in a sitting ski. And because they use outriggers, crutches. And because I don't have hands, I just skied right into the trees. And we didn't know how, but I knew I was going to ski. But we had no idea how. And it's that starting, even if you don't know how, you're going to be a famous movie star one day, right? And you just jump in there. And it wasn't sitting on a couch at home. I had to go out there and show up and be on that ski hill. And then my ski instructor, had these gigantic feet, like my magnificent John here, looking down at these sassy shoes.
We're all looking at John's feet now.
I don't know if they're on camera or not. And what I realized is that my thighs, right, because they end above knee, could fit in John's ski boots. And then I got a bigger light bulb. My thighs could fit in John's ski boots.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We put my thighs in men's ski boots, but they were canted forwards, angled forwards. And so I wiped out some more because I'm knees to skis, right? No bending of the knees, no duck squat position. So we just turn them around. I don't have toes. So we put my thighs in men's ski boots
Backwards.
backwards.
So clever.
Yeah.
So clever.
But I wouldn't
There's a
have figured
solution to every
Yeah.
challenge.
Yes.
That's amazing. I think that's a
If
really
you think I can.
yeah,
Exactly.
the I can attitude.
Yeah.
So powerful.
Yeah.
Really
Embrace that
is.
possibility. You too are going to be a movie star.
Yes. I've told myself that ever since I was 2 years old, speaking from the kid that always sang into the hairbrush, and I'm almost there.
Almost there. And
Almost
that's the language difference. Not I get to be or I will be or I have to be a movie star. I am a movie star. So you already speak into the language of I have won this race. I am a star. I am worthy. I think a lot of us have a worthiness story too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone has that one thing they can share, right, in order to make the world a better place, in order to inspire people.
Yes.
And I think it's just about finding your voice.
Yes.
And I know I'm going through that now. Everyone is going through that, really trying to figure out what their voice is to be able to inspire the world.
Yes.
So it's amazing that you found yours, and you're really inspiring a lot of people everywhere.
Yes, and I mean, thanks to sailing, thanks to skiing, thanks to climbing the Himalayas of Nepal, and yet I still will hold an elevator for absolutely anybody, no matter how late I am, because they are worthy of me holding the elevator. But when the shoe is on the other foot, no pun intended, right? I just say, oh, go ahead. I'm a bit slow. You go ahead. I'll catch the next elevator. And you think, I'm not worthy, not consciously. It's like a subconscious thing. I'm not worthy of them holding that elevator for me, despite the thousands and thousands, the 100 million viral views of a kindergarten story, and yet I still will send someone
Deny
on
yourself.
the elevator hold. And that's right. So we really all need to always constantly work at how we are worthy of a moment in time.
It's true.
So true.
Self-worth. I think that's something that everyone is working on some level. And another reason why I think acting classes are so powerful
Yes.
is learning to find your voice and learning to find your strength and being able to communicate that with others and draw lines and boundaries. It's an important part of life. I have a question for you. With all of your stories that you've shared and that sort of thing, and I know there's a lot of other motivational speakers. Is there a certain message that you still wish you could get across that you don't feel you've gotten across yet? Is there one particular message?
The I can is huge. Because it's funny, people stare and say the airport, as I was describing, and they do not ever want to be me and feel like, I don't know what I would do if I lost my arms and legs. And yet after I speak with sailing or skiing or climbing or Air Canada or Shoppers or Uber, like all of these stories, they start to say, well, that's you. I could never do that. So they go from not wanting to be me to thinking they can't be me. And I don't know what's going on for a lot of your listeners out there. People have had death in their family, illness in their family. There's been a disproportionate amount of relationship breakup and abuse. Like the hotlines are off the charts. for children and for adults and for women and for all of the minority groups. Like we see how Black Lives Matter took off. And so there's so many gaps, and I don't know what's going on for people out there.
Yeah.
But I know that for myself, when I live a life of no excuses, and no one would judge me if I had one or two, but when I live a life of no excuses, I get to live a life of no limits. No excuses, no limits.
Love that.
And that's what I would love everybody to really hear and take away. Not admire me, don't be inspired by me. Walk away feeling limitless like Adam.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's honestly an amazing message, and I'm really glad that everyone has the chance to hear that, because I feel like sometimes, as much as we want to tell ourselves, oh, we're working on it, sometimes to just hear it being said.
Yes.
It's that one more time hearing it is what it takes sometimes to really make it stick, right?
Yes.
And I know, like, even me hearing it, like, today, it's like giving me that aha moment where, as much as, like, I feel like a lot of us, we concentrate and we give ourselves excuses like, oh, we feel anxiety,
Yep.
we feel like there's a reason we worry about things, we always worry about what ifs, the what ifs, right?
Yeah.
But if we, like, concentrate on the what ifs, when are we ever going to get anything done, right? And
Yeah.
it's, like, a huge realization to honestly go through that.
Yes. Yeah, yesterday night I went to the movies and saw Elvis. And you know, Elvis's dad was arrested. And if he wasn't arrested, he wouldn't have moved into the neighborhood where he got exposure to the music that massively influenced him and his success and all of us. And so we think that sometimes the worst thing possible is the worst thing possible. And
Absolutely.
it's almost always, and I feel like it is always, a path and a sign and an invitation. Like, I am so lucky that I was born this way, because I learned really early that you do whatever it takes. I was just a 2-year-old that wanted the cookie from the cookie jar. And I wasn't brave, I wasn't a hero, I was born this way. I just was 2 and I wanted a cookie. But I learned I had to do whatever it took. I had to just problem solve until I could figure out what I could climb up on to get and steal the cookie jar.
Wow.
Or who I could inspire my sister to give me that cookie.
That's where your speaking skills came from.
Exactly.
Yes.
Your love of cookies. All right.
Love of cookies. The question was, what kind of cookie was it?
Yes.
So I want to chat a little bit about Act on Ability. So Act on Ability is a foundation that we co-founded along with Frank and Liz. And I just want to kind of chat a little bit about it because it's really starting to come into fruition in the next few weeks and what have you. Yeah, which is very, very exciting. And I just kind of want to mention this to our listeners as well, that we are going to really start looking for our first 12 applicants. So we're going to be taking applications for scholarships through Act on Ability, which is the foundation that is going to be helping actors with disabilities have better visibility, number one. Number two, better representation, more authentic representation, true representation, and also respectful representation, and making sure that proper language, proper acknowledgement, and use of terms, et cetera, are used. And so we've got some big things coming up. I think we're going to be trying to get on some breakfast television and some things of that nature. And we're looking for our first 12 people to go through this program. So if there's anybody who is listening, if there's anybody who is thinking, hey, this is something I want to be a part of, or I know somebody who would be really, really great for this program, we are going to be taking 12 actors through a complete training program in acting. And also introducing them to agents and casting directors, producers, directors, and writers. So if you know of somebody who you think might be good for that, please send us an email. The email is John, John, at actwithpurpose.ca. All right, so reach out to us because we're really excited to get this underway.
Yes.
Tell me what you've had all kinds of experiences, both on set, auditioning, things of that nature. What are some of the changes that you would like to see Act on Ability and us as a community start to embrace?
I think like nothing about us without us. I love that you've done Act with Ability, Act with Purpose is hosting this incredible organization by involving people with disabilities. And I can't tell you how many sets I might have been on where they wanted me, and then where they ended up, they thought, well, there's a step you're not going to be able to go, so thank you very much, rather than just ask me, can you do a step? And there's people who use a wheelchair that can also do a step or two or three, right? So it gets trickier if it's a power chair, but most people, even people that are paralyzed from the neck down, often have the ability to move a little. And so if you say that your location isn't accessible, and it's make or break for the audition, maybe they just use their manual chair that day and not their power chair. And so, of course, we want to be accessible and have the best sort of energy conservation for the ramps, for example, and for people who are deaf to be willing to have the masks that are see-through so that they can still read lips, or people with vision loss to be able to have, like, there's so many cords and triangular tripod stands out and about, and that doesn't mean that the person with vision loss isn't able to go, because 98% of people with vision loss are not totally blind.
Yeah.
And so not to make assumptions. So what I would love in the field is nothing about us without us, and authentically open-minded questions.
Yeah.
Believe capability, and let the person with the disability problem solve whatever gap is concerning you.
And I think that's such a great lesson, period, because every relationship, regardless of abilities or differences in abilities, communication is key to any relationship. And so that really doesn't change with being on set. Something that has been interesting, though, that I do see there is more of an ability for persons with disabilities to audition right now because of COVID.
Yeah.
And again, kind of going back to, sometimes it's that negative thing that we think, oh my gosh, how are we going to get through this, or how do we deal with that actually opens up different opportunities. And one of the opportunities that I've seen with all of the self-tapes that have come out, and the ability for people to audition from home and take their time and figure it out, like you had to figure out how to get to the cookie jar, figuring out how to do the self-tape, and more persons with disabilities are able to be seen by casting right now.
Yes.
Because of those self-tapes. There are, unfortunately, a lot of casting studios that I've been to that are not necessarily the most accessible.
No, but it's a casting studio, not a set. Because often sets are level because they have so much to drag in and out that they're not up a flight of stairs. So the actual recording of the movie will be accessible. It's just the location.
Getting to meet with the casting director.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that aspect of it.
Yes. And
Yeah.
of course, we're just talking mobility in that example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we do eventually want to branch out to every possible scenario. Something else that we talked about in terms of persons with disabilities working in television and film is, it doesn't always have to be a huge plot point.
No.
Sometimes it can just be the mom or dad or kid or neighbor or teacher just happens to have a disability. It doesn't have to be a huge rotation point for the plot or the storyline. It's just simply a part of life.
Yes. Yep. I was just in the movie, the short Jitters, and I'm mother of the bride.
Yes,
and
with
that's
Christopher
it.
Power.
Yes,
Love
Christopher
it.
Power.
That was amazing. Honestly, I saw it. You did really good in that.
Thank you. And I'm really excited about an upcoming movie that I'm not allowed to share too much plot with, because we'd like to submit it to TIFF. And so with TIFF, the rule is you've got to be first premiered. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're sort of keeping that a little bit secret, and
Nice.
that's the nice thoughts about that is, again, I'm doing the unimaginable that a lot of folks probably wonder. But what's interesting about that is people were wondering, well, maybe she could have less of a disability, and the casting around that, and the conversations, and the kickback we got in some of the positioning and sharing of the film. and so they're ready for disability, but how much disability, right? And same in sailing. You know, when you say, is there a community that you stand out with? Well, even in the community of people with disabilities in sailing, you know, maybe they're missing a foot or they're missing a thumb, or maybe they're paralyzed from the waist down, but they still got their arms. And I kind of call those paper cuts. And
Everything's relative, right?
Everything's relative. Yes. But that community also judge, right? Well, but I'm not a paper cut in their eyes. And so what am I doing in this world of parasailing? I'm almost too disabled. And I think that happens in the acting world too. We're ready for the token disability where the person can look attractive enough or be invisible enough.
And I think that, you know what, it's interesting that you say that, because I do feel like there is a cycle that every minority goes through in order to kind of be accepted into television and film. We saw the same cycle happen with persons of color, gay people, any sort of difference, right? With persons of color, when we first started out with TV and film, had to be either a fantastic dancer, singer, or a comedian, right? If you were funny, you were allowed to kind of make some sort of an appearance. Then, as things kind of progressed and we tried to become PC and failed miserably, we had the quote-unquote token appearances of the person of color, the gay person, the what have you. And we allowed it in certain situations, even with, if you think back to Three's Company, right? And the character of Jack, when they originally wrote that, he was supposed to be gay.
Right.
And they said, no, the censors were like, we cannot have a gay character. Now, a straight person pretending to be gay was acceptable and palatable. And same thing happened. I mean, Billy Crystal made such a huge impact on soap, and doing the same sort of thing, having a character, that stands out. But again, kind of in that token sort of position. And I feel like the same thing is happening with persons of disabilities, where you're right, like, it's a very strange comparison, but the same thing happens with gay actors. Well, it's a little too gay, right? A little too over this, a little too, in your face, a little too this, a little too controversial. It's going to make us think, and they almost see it as almost being a distraction, as opposed to just being reflection of real life.
Yes. It's funny, Stats Canada, they knock on doors and they say how many people in this household have a disability. And they do that in Canada and UK and Australia and the States. And it always comes out in and around 15% for many, many years. But that's just the people that say, yes, I have a disability. Men that have had a stroke and are paralyzed on one side, they don't say they have a disability. People over 65 that use a cane because they've got arthritis, or my Nana that had healthcare come in and Meals on Wheels come in, and does anybody in this household have a disability? She would say no, right? Whereas I care for myself, I cook for myself, I work for myself, I live by myself, and I would say, yes, I have a disability. So that 15% is only people that identify, and people who are blind do not call themselves disabled, people who are deaf do not call themselves disabled. So 15% is just the people that identify. So we know that number is way higher. And we also know after 65% of people acquire some kind of disability, and it gets higher at 75 and 85, and we know the population is aging. And so, right, since 2017, up before 2017, people who were 14 and younger were the predominant age group. But now, as of 2017, the predominant age group are people 65 and older. And so if that's the case, then that 15% stat of reflective of the population is not accurate. So if it's a movie or a commercial or a short, reflective of the population means, are most of your people over 65? Does any of your people have a visible disability? Are you acknowledging there are people with invisible disabilities? Like, are these just part of the don't forget your backpack on your way out to school, and remember Nana needs you to drop in to let the dog out. Like, are we building these kinds of conversations into our scripts?
What is your one hope that you think Act on Ability can do to kind of change the culture in the television and film industry?
I love that Act on Ability is including people with disability. I love that Act on Ability is looking to just have everyday roles. Like, tell me to apply for a customer in the bank at the commercial. And they're not looking for a customer at the bank with a disability. Like, sure, I'll apply for those too. I'll take every advantage I can.
Yeah.
But that I also am encouraged to apply for roles that may or may not be specific to a person with a disability.
Mm-hmm. Well, this ties into what you were talking about earlier for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because, like, for instance, I mean, like, I have dealt with this, like, on the side of being trans, because I'm kind of reached that point in my career where I'm like, as much as I want to make sure that I'm going to be a voice for the trans community, I don't want to just be known as being a trans actor.
Yes.
And I love the idea of there being just a role for, like, you have like the brother of the main character, they just happen to be trans, or just so happen to be like you said, like someone that works at the bank, they just so happen to be trans. You don't always have to talk about it.
No.
It just
It doesn't have to be a plot point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, just going off of what you guys were saying as well too. So one of my very close friends, Julia, who actually she grew up in my hometown of Timmins with me.
Hi, Julia Romaldi.
Hi, Julia Romaldi. We miss you. But she's also an actor, and she's gone through similar situations where, as she's going for auditions, she's had conversations with me. She's like, Adam, she's like, I don't just want to go out for these roles where they have specifically that the person has to, they say they have a disability.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that really needs to change in the industry. And it's starting to, move forward, but I still feel like there is work that needs to be done with it. But when I have people that are, coming up to me and having that conversation, that's how you know that it is affecting people.
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
yes.
Well, and I don't even know if at the bank teller they need to work in a line somewhere. Like, the script might say trans banker, but it might not even be part of, you're just, hi, I'm Adam. How can I help you with your banking today? Exactly. And that's it. Mm-hmm. And that the audience can decipher, may or may not know that you're trans because you're so masculine now that you don't even necessarily know that you're trans anymore. So it's
true.
Just like, maybe it's a curiosity, but it might not even be a learning point.
It's so true. And it's the weird thing that I'm going through now, actually, is so many people are kind of giving me that, talk of like, oh, you don't look like you'd ever look like you'd be trans. So, and then it's kind of just more so a point where, like, they would look at me as, oh, you don't have to be considered trans, but, like, I look at a lot of other people who don't have that same situation. Yeah. Like, for example, if they are, at a point in their transition where they have not gone through hormone replacement therapy, they have not had surgery, anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's wrong that they don't have the same experience going into the industry. And I've really noticed that, and I've had that realization, and I'm like, it shouldn't be that way. It's like everyone should have the equal opportunity to be able to make their voice heard in the industry, and the fact that it's not like that, it just shows like where we're at with everything.
Well, what it highlights for me too is, like, look at how in love we are with reality TV, The Bachelor and The Big Brother, and we're looking for real. And so if that's the truth, then hello, movies.
Exactly. It's like, it's right there. It's like right there,
at your
ready
fingertips.
for them to, exactly. And
to
it's
excel.
like, they just need to make that first step in order to, welcome those people in for those roles.
Yes.
And I know that they'd be ready with open arms, being able to take that. And it's
And
like,
Riley is welcome to join as like a canine Canadian. He wants representation as well.
Exactly. He's like, what? He's like, are you talking about me?
Yeah.
He's like, is it my turn?
Is it my turn? Anybody got any treats? We have lots of treats.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of
Yes.
treats for the listeners.
All right, so I know that both of you are a huge part of Act on Ability. So I'm going to ask you both a few questions. So John, can you explain about the curriculum when it comes to Act on Ability?
Yeah, so it's going to mirror a lot of what I've created for Act with Purpose, only it's going to be in a more condensed sort of format. I want to try and get through as much information and programming as possible in a short amount of time. So the program will run over 2 weekends for 4 hours, both on Saturday and on Sunday, working with them all the way through commercial work, script analysis, auditioning, and we actually have written a public service announcement. So while we are actually in class, we're actually creating as well. And so we're going to be working on a public service announcement, really talking about the importance and delivering the message of Act on Ability, which I think is going to be exciting. So it's part class, it's part creating, it's part networking, and it's part activism. So I'm really excited to kind of delve back into this and to be a part of this world. So the curriculum is challenging enough where it's going to be exciting, but it's also mindful of the fact that for some people may need caretakers. Some people may need additional breaks depending on what kind of disability they are managing. So so trying to be mindful of all those things, but also really trying to make it fast, action-packed. The first 12 students that go through our program are really going to be such pioneers. It's a really, really important group of people that we're going to be working with. The first 12, God, it sounds very biblical, but are really going to become almost like disciples.
I love it.
And start spreading the message of, inclusion and representation as well. So we have been working with some really great agents and casting directors, producers, writers, to make sure that there is inclusion there as well. And so, I'm very excited about getting the program started and working with those first 12 people, not only because of what kind of an impact it's going to have for those 12 people, but also the impact that those 12 people then are going to make moving on outside of the training.
That's honestly incredible. And honestly, I have no doubt that anyone who's going to be a part of the program, they're going to leave that program having amazing skills and techniques that they can carry with them wherever they go with their career.
Absolutely.
So my next question on top of that, so where can people find some more information?
We've got Act on Ability, ACT, Act on, ON, Ability, ABILITY.ca for Canada.
Yes.
actonability.ca.
And it's a great spot to just kind of see what our mission is, see how you can get involved, see what the entire program is going to be like.
That's honestly, it's incredible. And I have one last question for the both of you. I'll start with you, John. So what's one message that you would like everyone watching to know about Act on Ability?
I think Act on Ability is really a great space because the work that we're doing is, I think, exemplary of what needs to be done for every minority group. We need to, and again, it's not about a cause. It's not about trying to politicize anything here. It's just simply a reflection of real life. And I think the thing that's so interesting about persons with disabilities is even if you look at families, oftentimes families will hide the person with the disability and not invite them to as many family functions, not include, right? And so I think the thing that we're learning is that it's a very good life lesson to include all of our family members, regardless of different, differences, but to really embrace those things. And again, it's not about necessarily acceptance or this or that. Again, not trying to politicize anything, but at the same time, it's simply a reflection of real life. And in real life, we have family members, friends, teachers, coworkers that have disabilities. And it's about time we started to acknowledge it.
So true. And I love that you said that, because I think that's something that everyone could take something away from hearing that. And so now, how about you, Tracy? What's one message you would like everyone at home to know about Act On Ability?
So Act On Ability is going to set people up for success. And so there's not just the education of the people with disabilities, but there's also the support of the industry. And let's get the industry ready and prepared. And I think one of the reasons there's stopgaps is because they're afraid to communicate with people with disabilities, and they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. So just a little tip for everybody is that it's person first. And you can hear Riley really tapping to the solution of person first. And, so person first, it's Tracy with a disability. It's the talent who uses a wheelchair. It's the actor who reads lips because they have hearing loss. So it's the person first in the sentence. And then you'll always be right. So if you're wondering how to say it or what to say, as long as you have the person first, you're going to be already off to the races as a racer.
So not saying one-legged John, right?
Right? It's
Those
John
kinds of
who's got one leg.
Exactly. Well, those are the things that I think it's important to. I'm constantly reminding myself that, and I think the thing that we also, people who are not a member of a certain community, we have to give ourselves a break. You're going to make mistakes.
Yes.
But as long as you correct those mistakes and you acknowledge them and you address them and you're learning and you're in the progress of trying to become better, there is nobody who will ever be upset with you. And I think that I think that's one of the things that I feared the most about jumping into this and taking this on is, am I equipped? Do I have enough education myself that I'm not going to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, and create more of an issue than solving issues? And so one of the things that you taught me, along with Frank and Liz and everybody else at Act On Ability, is that life is a work in progress.
Yes.
And we have to be easier on ourselves and allow ourselves to make mistakes, forgive ourselves for those mistakes, but learn from them so that we can better serve the community.
And language is evolving, right?
Yes.
We did have physically challenged, and we had handicapped, and we had all sorts of different languages out there. And now it's just person with a disability. Like, you just need to call it what it is. You don't need to sugarcoat it. The person has a disability. It's right there. There's nothing that you need to change or hide or give a new language to it. I imagine that might change again.
Oh, constantly, yeah.
Fun fact.
Well, and same thing with LGBTQ2S+.
Yes.
It's always
Plus.
changing. Yeah. and I think that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just it's the evolution of consciousness and inclusion. So
I think that's like ourselves as actors, even. When we discover a new part of who we are, we then dive into a deeper and broader ability to act in other areas. And when we open up the language of, for in this situation, a person with a disability, or lesbian, bi, gay, trans, queer, plus, well, it didn't used to be plus, and now we've opened it up, and we're like, oh, we're forgetting the plus. And so it's great. Each time we get more open-minded and aware, it's more effective. And so the way I treat this wall, right, the wall of communication or the wall of understanding or the wall of any learned skill, is watch, ask, listen, learn. WALL. Watch, ask, listen, learn. Watch. What are the people that know what they're doing? Ask. If you really don't know, just ask. What's the right way to assist you, Tracy? Or what's the appropriate terminology, Adam? And I listen, and then I learn. For example, sometimes I say, people say, how can I assist you best? And I say, could you pull my little arm to stand me up? And 9 times out of 10, people counteroffer, can I pull your long arm? And they say, oh, I'll just pull your long arm, because they think pulling the long arm makes more sense because there's more of an arm to pull. But in reality, I have asked, can you pull my little arm? And my long arm, I've had a bunch of surgeries on that elbow, and I don't want to have to explain that. It's just like, oh, I'm sorry. And it's not a time to feel sad. It's just a time to get me up so we can go dance. And so just
true.
help me the way I'm asking and learn. And then I also use my long arm to push. So
Yeah.
I'll push and you pull, and it all works out. But who needs a big, long-winded explanation?
Right. But isn't it interesting that people often don't listen to what we're asking for?
Yes. Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
So I think we should change that to voila.
Voila.
Yeah.
Watch, ask.
Watch, ask, listen, learn, adjust.
Adjust.
Or adapt.
Adapt. Oh, I like that.
Because we have
I like
to,
that.
right?
That's so true.
Beautiful. Voila.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for hosting today.
Gosh.
You're awesome. It's great to see you back here.
My pleasure. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
Such an amazing podcast. I feel like everyone's going to learn something really amazing from watching this. So
I totally agree. And Tracy, I can't tell you how much you mean to me. You know how we started out our relationship over Twitter. And I was feeling really, really low, and there were some things happening in my personal life that were kind of weighing me down. And what I do a lot of times is I will turn to social media looking for inspiration. And I found one of your speeches, and I was in tears. It moved me so much. And then I started following you and retweeting and leaving comments. And
Forevermore.
Fun fact, she reached out to me, and I actually kind of felt like maybe I had crossed over and I was a stalker. Because you texted me, and your first message to me was, I think you might be my number one fan. Which I think was a very polite way of saying, who are you creeper? And what are you doing? But I am so thankful, and who knew that little moment of reaching out would develop into such a special friendship.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
thank you for being here today. Thank you for all the work that you do, not just for us, but for the entire community, and being such a strong leader. And also, can I just say, it's so nice to see a woman have such power and have this voice, because I think it adds a certain flair to it as well. So thank you for everything you do. You're an amazing person. We're honored.
Well, thank you. I am stretched to where I am because of you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Till next time, everyone. Bye.